Hi, everyone. I am here with one of our fabulous bar ambassadors, Lynnette Marrero. All right, let's get started.
Okay. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk with you about was how you ended up working in the hospitality industry. Was it kind of something that you always wanted to do or kind of something you just kind of fell into?
It was something I fell into really because I was doing Broadway and performing and doing that. And I never wanted to be a cliche waiter actor. So I actually resisted being in hospitality for a long time until 9/11. So what I was doing prior to that, instead of being a waiter actor, was doing temp jobs, working in offices, etc. At that point, I was like, well, I'm never going into an office building again. So I'm going to have to figure out hospitality. And so I did. I got a job at a wine bar on the Lower East Side and started working there. We're actually quite a few of us. It was funny. Michael Chernow, who's kind of a famous chef, he was also working there at the time. He was pursuing acting and we were working in hospitality, but we both kind of became into this industry in quite a big way. So just started working there, learning about global wine, and really just kind of understanding hospitality. And I ended up really loving it. Started working in bars that like martini lounges and that, and moved into spirits and full cocktail programs. And then really kind of through working at the Flatiron Lounge, which became a very big part of my career, was where I really fell in love with craft cocktails and really building drinks in a way that was very different and more theatrical and more complex.
Cool.
And that led me to restaurant bars, which are kind of a place that I felt more at home at, working at Freeman's, where we really had like that gastropub sort of idea, but it was craft cocktails, fresh juice. And so through that, I started working and consulting on building bar programs.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you were like an actor. No, not an actor, waiter, but kind of acted at first. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely fun, and I loved it. But different type of entertainment than working in bars.
Oh, definitely. The reason I mentioned is I have a friend doing the same thing right now.
So nice. Like,
oh, I know this life.
lots of my friends are still in it. I just don't want to do that national touring anymore.
Oh no, that makes sense. That's a lot of commitment. So when and where did you make your first drink then? Either, I guess.
That would be my first cocktail on the menu or my first.
Sure. Yeah, your first cocktail on the menu.
I don't think I had any cocktails on the menu at Flatiron because I kind of was just starting there, and that was my first official bartending gig. So really, it would be at Freeman's. I had my first cocktail put on menu there. But
do you remember what cocktail that was?
The Cusco Fizz.
So when you are designing a bar, what parts of the bar do you kind of consider like a must-have that you can't live without?
I mean, for me, I think it's something that's always complicated is that working with designers, they don't leave enough space for you to put your glassware. It's a chronic problem in the hospitality industry where they just don't think about it. And so trying to control where you have that storage on your side, where you're building out to make sure that you have places to put the vessels that cocktails are going to go into is super important. So I feel like it's the most forgotten thing. So it's the one thing that I look at most. I feel like I'm pretty adaptable to most other things, whether it's, depending on the space, whether people want to use a dip sink or they want to use the sprayers to clean their tins. I'm very adaptable in those just because, working in New York where space is always an issue, you have to think about what's going to fit the dynamic. And, sometimes you inherit very old spaces where there's not a lot of freedom to change. So you have to get a bit creative and think of which method is going to work best for that process to make to streamline what's going to be happening. So those are some of the things that are most important is where I'm going to put glasses that I'm putting things into, and then where I'm going to wash my tins to keep moving.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of going off of that then, like what's the most like nightmare bar situation, I guess, that you've found yourself in? Either like where you've been working the bar or just have seen.
Most nightmare. I mean, I think there's tons of them. It's really hard to say what the worst one, because it's usually whenever there's no access, or the running water, it's like one place to rinse something and you don't have, that's usually it. It's usually something to do with not being able to wash efficiently your tools, which to me is the biggest nightmare because that's sanitary. You're not properly dealing with your tins, especially if we're using egg whites and all these things, then you're going to have a big issue at the end of the day.
Hmm. And then on the flip side of that, like what is the best bar layout that you've been able to work in?
I wish I could say it was the Diageo bar, but I think there was
Mhm.
a lot of issues with that
Yeah.
setup that I didn't like with certain stuff. And that one was using, I won't say what brand, but they use a certain station that gets a lot of good reviews. And I don't think it was just set up because I was very far away. I
Mhm.
I don't have long arms.
Yeah.
I'm a shorter person. I'm
I
average height and I don't
I
have
understand.
a
I'm also a shorter
incredible
person.
wingspan. So for me, that means like, I think that's another thing that people don't take how far, a lot of people, my peers who, were designing bars, they're like, yeah, I'm a 6 foot guy with long arm reach. I'm like, okay, yes, that works for you, but it's not going to work for me. And now I'm like on releve dropping your cocktails onto the bar. So I think that kind of is something to think about.
So then I guess kind of to switch gears a little bit into the drinks that you have designed personally, what do you think is the most challenging drink you've designed and why?
Um, there's a lot of them. I mean, I try to think about streamlining them. I mean, I put a lot of sous vide and elements, so it's mostly the prep. It's not necessarily on pickup,
Okay.
just because I've always worked in bars where there has to be a thought process to, yes, something can be complicated, but you have to
Mm.
get it to the guest in time. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
building the drinks. It's more, I put a lot of my team in the advanced part. So it's more of like, okay, we have to sous vide these things, get these batches together to group batch certain parts of the drink that are stable. So that way we can execute these in a timely manner for the guest.
Mhm.
I guess we have like a 3-step caramel, tamari, caramel, popcorn infused old fashioned, Japanese whiskey old fashioned on the Lama San menu. That one might be the one that takes the most steps. But then I'm like, okay, we also have a milk punch, which also takes a lot of steps. So again,
Yeah.
nothing on the pickup to the guests that they would
Mhm.
know, but more on the bartender side.
Yeah. Oh, the caramel drink that you were mentioning, like that just sounds so good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then, so you have done a lot of things in the bar industry that I think are really cool when I was kind of, looking into your website. And I know you just had the Speedrack competition a few weeks ago, I think now. Can
Yes,
you,
it was almost a month ago.
yeah,
Actually,
can you,
over a month.
a month? Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that competition, how you helped start it and kind of what it is?
Sure. It was started in 2011. We started it as an opportunity. Initially it started as where we saw there was a gap of women in the industry who were working in cocktail bars having opportunities presented to them. So we were like, well, there's this incredible talent pool. People seem to think that there are no women in craft. So we wanted to create a cocktail competition that would highlight and promote those women, as well as raise money for charity. I was doing lots of charity events with an event group called LUPEC, which
Mhm.
is Ladies United for the Preservation of Endangered Cocktails. And that was kind of a big organization that was national. We were all in different chapters, but we all decided to do cocktail events to raise money for women's based charities. So with Speedrack, we decided to put that element in there as well, just because, there was so much opportunity to raise, money through cocktails and bartending that we thought was, if we're going to do something, we should impact our community in a
Yeah.
larger level, not just with bartenders. So that was kind of really the starting point, and we decided that focusing on a classic cocktail competition where we were challenging the women competing to do what they do every Friday, Saturday night when they're cranking out cocktails for 70 seats, but then 4
Mhm.
cocktail luminaries come and sit at your bar, and you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have to make 4 of the best cocktails ever, but I need to quickly put
Mhm.
them down and then keep serving the rest of the team. So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah. It looks really, really cool. Like,
It is. It's a
pictures
lot
I've
of
seen
fun.
of it, I was like, "Wow, I wanna watch." So, and then I wanted to ask you kind of about trends for 2022 with both drinks and with bar designs. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, what you're seeing?
So, I mean, I think, people are definitely, when guests come out, I think that's what we're all responding to is what guests like to see. And I
Yeah.
think we're making cocktails at home, had plenty of time to kind of play around with, drinks and, things like that. So they
Yeah.
have like now a base level understanding of what it takes. So I think now guests are more interested in things that will excite them and wow them as
Okay.
opposed to because there's just so much more. There's things that they can't do at home, and so they want to see those things. So I feel like there's definitely more interest in more complex cocktails, flavors that are more unique, using spirits and liqueurs that they probably wouldn't have before. So I think that's kind of helpful.
Yeah. And then kind of just like a lighter question, but what's your favorite drink to make, either for yourself or for a guest?
Um, I mean, I love martini variations.
Okay.
Those make me really happy. Whether it's, 50/50s, Gibsons, that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
personally love those drinks. Make a lot of Negronis. But for me, it really doesn't matter. Like, I love making any cocktail that's going to make someone happy. So there's no like, I just like this style or this style. I really have a very broad spectrum. I make a lot of spritzes. I do a lot of kind of light and fresh, filling that no and low. But I love flavor building and bringing culinary techniques into my cocktails, because I think there's so much there's so many opportunities to have more things in it. So
Oh, that's cool. I like that answer. And then kind of going back to designing, we have a program called Barflex 3D where you can kind of create your dream bar through the software and kind of switch things around as you want. Have you been able to use that? And if you have, because it helped the way you've designed bars?
I have not, because I
Okay.
haven't designed a bar since
Yeah.
since really knowing about Crown
Yeah.
yet. So I haven't used it, but I think it's a great concept. I mean, I think it's obviously makes a lot of sense. It's
Mhm.
super useful. I think what sometimes is hard for people to imagine, what it's like. So I think that's helpful.
And then kind of going off with those designing questions, when people start designing a bar, is there something you think that they need to know going in?
Well, no, I think they need to understand what kind of program they want to
Okay.
execute.
Yeah.
Because, I think a lot of people go in thinking they want to do this really complex craft cocktail, but then they don't
Mhm.
build a bar that makes that happen. So I've gone in and done lots of retrofitting programs,
Mhm.
and had to use a lot of other techniques to make it work. But
Yeah.
if the space had been set up properly in the first place, it would have been a lot easier.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I feel the other, big thing I've seen that you have kind of accomplished within this, either this past year, these past 2 years, COVID has really been wonky on my timeline, is that you launched the first masterclass for mixology,
Mm-hmm.
which is very cool. Can you tell me like a little more about that, kind of how that came to be?
Really, it was just kind of they found me, reached out to me, and we got on a phone call.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
recruiter was like, "Hey, would you, we want to see if you would be interested in doing this class. We think you would be great for it." And then the process started. Really, creative director reached out after they met me and kind of vetted me, and then they reached out and said, "What do you want to teach? What do you think? What do
Mhm.
you think this first class that's in this area, what should that be?" And I just talked through a lot, and I really pulled from a lot of the things that I know, which is like, hey, well, I think people need to know the basics. Like, they can't,
Yeah.
run if they haven't been taught the steps to walk. And
Mhm.
so that was really my focus, was how to kind of teach people cocktail families, cocktail styles, and
Yeah.
think about classics, but then give them alternatives to work with. Whereas my counterpart Ryan was doing more complex, but the whole idea was to really come together and build a class where people could like discover their own cocktail voice. And kind of a lot of the ways I train my bar teams,
Mhm.
which is, okay, here's the basics, here's the understanding. Now let's play around and have fun. Once we
Yeah.
understand the rules, then we can break the rules.
Yeah, no, it just sounds really cool. I've watched the preview for it and I'm like, I should take this because I want to get better at making. So, why did you want to partner with Crown?
I really thought it was interesting that to bring bartenders into the conversation of design. I know that's been something where I think kind of something I've seen in my career. It's that, like, choices are picked and machinery and things are built without sometimes the thought process of talking to the people who create them. And so Crown reaching out and asking, for me to be a part of it, to have a understanding of it, and to help contribute to the betterment of these products. I think that's really valuable and important.
Mhm.
And I love that there's a whole collective of people working in the space who have different skill sets. Leo's really brilliant at design, and lots of people who, it's good, because I think a collective mind brings together lots of different experiences from other places, how people work differently, and that definitely adds to the. So I like the group approach. There's a lot of advisors from the community involved, and that's going to make it a stronger product.
Yeah. What kind of drink do you think matches your personality?
um What can I do? Probably a champagne cocktail, like a French
Okay.
75.
Okay.
Kind of
Uh,
palatable, really fun. You have
yeah.
I like to make sure things are festive and bright and fun.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then last one, if you could only make one drink for the rest of your life, what drink would that be?
It'd probably be a Negroni in all of its variations because I feel like if I just have sweet vermouth and Campari, I can probably make a ton of drinks and riffs based on that. So that's a efficient mindset.
Yeah, you're quick with that one.
It got me through quarantine. I was like, Negronis and all their riffs were pretty much the heart of my quarantine.
Nice. I like that. So if anyone wanted to find out more about you, where can they go?
They can find me on Instagram at Drinks at Six. I'm the bar director for Llama Inn and Llama Suns. So if you want to kind of have an understanding of what my programs are like, you can pop by those restaurants and try the cocktails there. Or you'll just find me at a Speedrack. You'll find me around the country doing things.
All right. So thank you so much for your time today.